Roddy Piper has passed away. What's up, everyone? A very, very somber and emotional good mic work coming back at you, doing a commentary that I really wish I did not have to do. Son of a bitch. Unbelievable. So we have lost another one in the wrestling world. I don't know how many more kick in the balls us as fans are going to be able to take. We just lost a legend like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, a mere weeks ago, and now we have to deal with the unfortunate passing of Roddy Piper. Reports are saying that he did suffer some sort of a cardiac episode or heart attack, so this does not look like it's any sort of a suicide or OD type of situation. Piper was really never that guy. He was never somebody that was on the list of people that we would think would die of something shady like that. However, he's only 61. To me, Piper could have easily been here for another 20 years. Such unbelievably sad news to hear today. I was devastated. I heard the news while I was at work. I actually just recently got off. I have not really read much about the details on his death. All I know is apparently it was a heart attack. I know the wrestling world has just unloaded their support for Roddy Piper and his family. A lot of people have been sounding off on Twitter, wrestlers, and, everybody involved in professional wrestling, really, and even the mainstream media is covering this death. This one, for me, it's a Randy Savage. It's an Owen Hart. It's a Kurt Hennig. It's a Brian Pillman. It's someone like that it just really hits me hard because Piper, he's my whole life. I don't have a memory without Roddy Piper. I started watching him in the very early 80s, when he was in NWA. And when I think about my life as a wrestling fan, Piper occupies an enormous chunk of my memory in professional wrestling. And this one is so unbelievably sad. The timing of it really sucks as well. Like I said, we just lost the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and this is also tying in with, the huge story that has broke just in the past week, someone that Roddy Piper has a huge history with, Hulk Hogan, and everything that's gone on with him, with his firing and the racist rants and all of that. I do believe Piper even commented a little bit on that. He was even on a show with Rich Eisen a few days ago that the internet was kind of talking about because Roddy Piper kind of seemed a little bit out of it. And I've even said that recently in recent years, especially as it relates to his podcast and everything. As much as I love Piper, I respect the shit out of him. I'm so unbelievably sad that he has passed away. But I always thought he was just a little bit kooky. And that's just a fun-loving, I'm not mad at Piper for that or anything like that. I'm not trying to talk shit about the guy. But I thought in his later years, he was a little out there, but that's Piper, I feel really bad that things ended for him the way they did. Like I said, he had to sit here and watch what happened to Hulk Hogan transpire all week long. On top of that, he had major turmoil with his podcast and everything going on with Podcast One and Stone Cold Steve Austin and all of that. You got to imagine how Stone Cold feels today. I'm really in a state of disbelief and shock. I don't know why I would be. This is something that as wrestling fans that we've all grown accustomed to. Our heroes die literally every fucking day, it seems like. And it's never ending with this shit. Just when we think just about everybody who could die has already died, we lose another one that just shocks the hell out of you. I was not ready for the American Dream. I was not ready for Randy Savage, and I sure as hell am not ready for Roddy Piper. And I really don't know what to say about it other than I'm just devastated. I mean, I know a lot of people are expecting me to come up here and make a video, and I had to come up and address this as soon as possible. But for me, it's more like, just sadness. All I want to do is, sit in front of my computer and watch Roddy Piper matches. I want to reminisce on Piper, what made me love him to begin with, and what a huge icon and legend he was in this business, and how deeply I respected him. I had no choice but to use the YouTube name that I chose because great mic work was already taken, and that moniker belongs to Roddy Piper. Nobody was better on the mic than him. That guy could cut a promo like a motherfucker. There was nobody like him on the mic. I have so many unbelievably wonderful memories of Roddy Piper dating back so far. He's got a very interesting life story as well. I love the story of how he got into wrestling and how he was, practically homeless at a very young age, and he really made his own way. A lot of people, in today's day and age don't understand what it was like to try to break into the business back then when Piper was doing it, especially at such a young age like that. And he really does have an incredible story. And for those of you that might not be familiar with his early life, read up on it or look at it as best you can. As a matter of fact, the WWE has got I think a 3 DVD set out on him that I own, released maybe 10 or so years ago, and a really good documentary on Piper's life. So in the meantime, I would say maybe check something like that out if you want to learn more about Piper. I don't even know where to begin if I just want to roll off, thoughts and memories and reminisce about Roddy Piper. I love the way he came in. Like I said, I've always been a very big fan and had a lot of respect for Don Owen and the Portland territory. I thought that area of the country in professional wrestling was very good. As a matter of fact, I think Portland wrestling ran from the 50s to the 90s or something like that. I'm pretty sure they've got to have the longest running TV deal in wrestling history. I could be wrong about that. WWE, I'm sure, will break that record in upcoming years, but they remained on television for a long time. And Piper never forgot where he came from. He was always very respectful of Portland, and he'd go back and make appearances from time to time. And Don Owen was a hell of a promoter, very well respected, and it was a great territory. And then when he goes into the NWA, has feuds with Ric Flair. One of my favorite matches ever, Starrcade 1983 with Greg the Hammer Valentine, the brutal dog collar match that Piper had with him for the United States title right before Roddy Piper made the jump to go to WWF. And, of course, we all know Piper's track record in the WWF. Vince realized right away that this guy could talk, and they gave him Piper's Pit. All of the wonderful contributions that Hot Rod helped make during the rock and wrestling era. Piper was the opponent for Hogan. And there's a big part of me that I saw a little bit of Roddy Piper's argument, in the WrestleMania 1 buy rate. Hulk Hogan was an icon. He was a legend. He was so fucking over. Nobody's ever going to deny that. But Roddy Piper does have a point when he says how much money they drew back then. Were people buying a ticket to see Hulk Hogan, or were people buying a ticket to see Hulk Hogan beat the shit out of Roddy Piper because he was such a dastardly heel and he did not give a fuck? I mean, he was out there beating up celebrities and shit. Mr. T kicking Cyndi Lauper around. Piper was a badass, and he did not care. He would get right in your face. An absolutely fearless shit talker, one of the greatest of all time. I cannot believe that Piper has died. So Roddy Piper's legacy and how much he meant to WWF and professional wrestling in general is huge. His contributions were amazing, and he was another one of those guys that was mainstream. When you think about people out there that non-wrestling fans would recognize, they would recognize a Hulk Hogan. They would recognize Macho Man Randy Savage. And Roddy Piper, I dare say, is another one of those names. But Piper was definitely a guy that even non-wrestling fans knew who he was and were aware of him. Crossed over into movies a little bit. How can we ever forget his classic movies from the 80s? I mean, those things were so bad, they were good. And I know a lot of people like to remember Hot Rod for how good he was on the mic, but he also wasn't a damn bad worker either. The guy could fight, and he was very good. I loved, probably one of my favorite Intercontinental title matches of all time was Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 8. What a great fucking match. Roddy Piper. Do you realize that he was never defeated in the WWE? All those years he feuded with Hogan. The war to settle the score, WrestleMania 1, all that shit in the 80s. Nobody ever pinned that guy, ever, including Hogan. And Bret Hart was pretty much the first guy to do it. I always loved Roddy Piper's interviews, no matter what he was doing. He had so much charisma. A lot of his pre-match interviews were some of the best things that he had ever done. Forget about Piper's Pit. That thing is a whole another level of awesomeness on its own. But just Piper's promos. When he would get to talking about a guy, he could absolutely tear them down. Nobody could ever win a war of words with Roddy Piper. You get in a shouting match with him, you will lose. Guaranteed. And he wasn't a half-bad announcer either. He sat there next to Vince McMahon for a couple of years doing commentary in the WWE. I've mentioned several times I loved his work at SummerSlam 1990 when he did commentary with Vince, and he was basically the heel commentator. He basically filled the role of a Jesse Ventura because Jesse had just left. Piper was a babyface on TV, but I think they needed to have that heel commentator just to, have Vince and Piper feed off each other. And Piper played the role of the heel that night, gave a lot of shit to the babyfaces in every match. I loved his work at that pay-per-view. Probably my favorite SummerSlam of all time was SummerSlam 1990. And a big part of that reason is because of Roddy Piper and hearing his voice describe the action in the ring. I thought he was fantastic. I remember being really disappointed when he went to WCW because he had come back to the WWE in early 96 to become the commissioner. Savage and Hogan had already left by that point, so Vince was able to bring Piper back in. Finally, he still has one more household name that he can use, and I think it was just maybe 6 months after WrestleMania 12, after that great backlot brawl that he had with with Goldust when Piper filled in for Razor Ramon. And that was one of my favorite matches of the 90s. I love that little feud that Piper and Goldust had. And I think right after WrestleMania, by October, or maybe even before October, Piper was in WCW. And I always felt that, that was probably quite the blow to Vince McMahon to lose Piper. And I was really happy when he came back. I don't think we saw Piper in the WWE again until the Hogan-Vince match at WrestleMania 19. When Piper interfered in that, I remember being so happy. I'm like, there was a time where I thought we would never see Piper back in the WWE. And since the buyout took place, Piper is able to now come back in. They reconciled. They brought Piper back in from time to time on TV, resurrected the old Piper's Pit segments, and they started doing more of those in the mid-2000s. And everything was, he even won the fucking tag team titles with Ric Flair, did he not? He worked WrestleMania 25 against Jericho in that handicap match. So Piper, he was still doing things all the way up until just a few years ago, and he would still, to this day, make an occasional appearance on WWE. And it's just a shame. Piper was really somebody that I was hoping to see him hobble out there when he's 80 years old, do something, slap around a wrestler, or just be awesome. And it's just a shame that we're not going to be able to be graced with Hot Rod's presence anymore. And I cannot believe another one has left us. And the only silver lining in this horrible tragedy is that at least Piper didn't die of something fucked up. At least what we think. I'm sure an autopsy could reveal anything, who knows, but early reports are this was simply a heart attack. Piper was very high-strung. He probably was under a lot of stress, everything that's going on with his podcast and everything, but to me, he was just way too young. 61 is not old. And if you're not pumping your body full of drugs and steroids or anything like that, I would expect that you could live a little bit longer. Piper was always in great shape. He always seemed very healthy. I know in later years, he got a little older and slowed down a lot. And of course, his health might have declined a little bit, but that goes with anybody who gets older. But it's truly a shame. I am absolutely destroyed over this death. This is horrible. I've really enjoyed the little bit that I have seen on Twitter, though. A lot of people are really coming out and saying really nice things about Roddy Piper, sharing their memories. I even saw that Ronda Rousey has her fight later on tonight with the UFC. She's dedicating the whole thing to Roddy Piper. The boys are here, actually, in San Diego. WWE ran a house show tonight, and I have no doubt that they probably did at least a 10-bell salute or something like that for Piper. This Monday night's Raw should be very emotional. I have no doubt that Piper should get, at the very least, the same type of treatment that Dusty Rhodes got. I know Roddy Piper and Vince in the WWE have had on again, off again. Sometimes they've got along just fine. Sometimes there's been a little bit of heat. But at the end of the day, Piper is who he is, and I know the WWE will honor him properly. So I guess that's all I'm going to say. Like I said, I just wanted to come up here and pay some sort of a tribute to Roddy Piper and just to kind of talk out of my ass a little bit about Piper and what he meant to me and how much I respected the man and how horrible it is that we have been dealt yet another crushing blow in the world of professional wrestling, and we have lost another one. And it's getting to the point now when you go back and look at old wrestling footage, it's all ghosts. There are so few people that are still alive from the era that I grew up watching, that I loved, that made me become a wrestling fan. A lot of you younger fans, who grew up during the Attitude Era, imagine if Rock and Austin and DX, imagine if they were all dead. That's what I feel like I'm going through as far as 70s and 80s wrestling goes. So many guys have left us, and it's just, it's becoming unbearable. I really wasn't ready to lose Piper. I'm never ready to lose anybody. I wasn't ready to lose the American Dream yet. I feel like he's somebody that could easily still be alive. And Roddy Piper, same thing. 61, it's just too fucking young. It's too fucking young. I will catch you guys this week after Monday Night Raw. I'm sure there will be much more to discuss about Roddy Piper, as well as how SummerSlam is shaping up. So I will definitely be back up here late Monday night or Tuesday discussing all of the fallout from Monday Night Raw. So please keep a lookout for that. In the meantime, I want us to all remember Roddy Piper, watch his matches, read up on his career, reminisce all you can about one of the most influential professional wrestlers that has ever lived. Roddy Piper, we all love you. Rest well, brother. Until next time, peace.